Curiosity. It's the name of a buggy designed to explore craters on Mars. It's daring to believe, dream, and think further than anyone has thought before. Not accepting the world as it is, but wondering what we could be. Today, we're better connected than ever before. It's a wonderful time to be curious.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Follow your curiosity wherever it might take you with Vodafone's unlimited mobile and gigabit broadband network.
At KBC, don't pay for the everyday. Get free day-to-day banking when you lodge just €2,000 each month, like your salary. So, open an extra current account today and forget about everyday fees. At KBC, we're doing things differently.
1 million students are set to return to school in the coming weeks, but unions are warning there could be delays. We'll ask, is the roadmap realistic?
If we have put all the measures in place that we can, then why should we not open?
And for a government still stuck in the middle of rows over ministerial salaries and a welfare crackdown, just how vital is a successful reopening of schools?
Hello and welcome to Prime Time. Pack the lunchbox, get the uniform ironed. It's almost time to go back to school, but will they be ready in just 1 month's time? The Minister says she's every confidence they will, but unions are warning of potential delays. We'll be hearing from students, parents and teachers shortly. But first, Richard Downs has this report.
A month to go and the challenge is enormous. Change thousands of schools to make them COVID safe and get 1 million pupils into the classroom. St Dominic's Secondary School has been educating girls in Ballyfermot in Dublin for more than 60 years. It has one of the best records in the country in getting their pupils into third-level education. Not always easy in an area of such social disadvantage. The principal says there's no question of whether they'll open in September. It's going to happen.
If we have put all the measures in place that we can, if we have limited the risk to the best of our abilities, and we are meeting the guidelines according to the government and the unions, and everyone is satisfied with that, then why should we not open?
Sarah has been pacing the corridors, trying to figure out how they'll configure the rooms, how much it'll all cost, and the fine margins involved.
This classroom, because I'm about 40 centimetres short, I'm losing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I know principals, they're in their classrooms, you know, in the next couple of weeks, they'll be getting in and literally laying them all out as best they can to see how many can they fit. What we have put in place now is that the students will be anchored in classrooms, in base classrooms, and the teachers will circulate to them. Now, there are challenges with that. One, we need to be careful about supervision, and that's why I'm very glad that there is extra provision of supervision, because we need to have supervision in between the class breaks when the teachers are rotating. Another thing is that I'm concerned, and I don't have an answer for this, is what about student movement in the classroom? It's very hard to say they're going, you know, I'm a young person, I'm going to sit in a room for 6 hours of the day.
Gary Harding's job is to make sure children don't fall out of school, a challenge when learning was done exclusively online.
There was Trojan work done by all the schools that we work across, from everyone from the principal all the way down, to ensure that those kids will continue to be supported. We're still getting resources sent out, we're still getting packs delivered, we're still getting online engagement or phone engagement, but nothing beats that piece, that real world piece. When you're going into school every day, you're there from 8:30 until 4 o'clock, and you're in that sort of that bubble, that supportive environment where everything is kind of geared towards your success and your successful movement through your years in school. There's nothing really can replace that in a digital sense or in an online form.
Returning from a 4-year career break, Dominican sister Liz has found herself in the thick of it. concerned about how to keep hundreds of teenage girls safe.
I've had a few sleepless nights in the last couple of weeks thinking, oh my God, what will that mean? One would worry about at lunchtime if students go out. Can you keep them locked up in a building? No, because as an adult and as deputy principal, I wouldn't want to be kept locked up in the one room all day. So we'll work around that. So I'm looking forward to the challenge. And I think it'll be interesting, but I'm not saying it's going to be easy.
The taps are being changed, the round desks are being put into storage, the classrooms are being ripped apart. Now the biggest headache for the principal is getting staff.
If it comes in August that I'm still looking for teachers, so be it. That is not something new for me. Unfortunately, for the last number of years, this recruitment crisis is not a new situation. Yes, it's potentially going to be compounded now by this new availability of staff and new recruitment. But look, we will do our best.
That report was from Richard Downs. Now I'm joined by Anya Lynch, CEO of the National Parents Council Primary, by Deirdre MacDonald, President of the Association of Secondary Teachers Ireland, and Leaving Cert student Matthew Ryan. Anya, we've had the day to consider the guidelines. Are you happy that it is safe to send children back to school?
Well, I don't think anything is without risk, but I think what the measures have included are really looking at the safest way that we can reopen schools. And I think what parents have been doing over the last number of weeks and months is kind of balancing risk all the time. And as COVID is, the R rate is coming down in the country, I think the risk around mental health and well-being has become more to the forefront of parents' minds. So I think it is always balancing, and I think now is the time that we do need to get children back into school in as safe a way as possible. And I think this roadmap has given us the tools to do that.
The key, I suppose, to the safety around this is not bringing COVID-19 into school in the first place. Are you clear as to what the guidance is for parents about when children should be kept home? Is that clear?
I think it's clear, but I think there's work to be done yet in making sure that parents are clear on that. So I know that we will be working with the department very closely over the next couple of weeks in terms of developing that guidance for parents, because I think that really is critical, that parents have to be very clear, and also they need to be very clear about the restrictions and the rules within the school, because they have to reaffirm them at home. The messages for children have to be the same. They can't be getting mixed messages. So I think that partnership between the school and the parents is absolutely vital.
Because the guidelines suggest really that children who have any of the symptoms of COVID-19 should stay at home. But that's a problem for families, isn't it? Because heretofore, you know, a runny nose might be, you might go into school in any event. It's going to be a different kettle of fish in September.
That is going to be different, and I think that's what everybody has to get used to, and I think the culture of schools will be different. So it'll be different for teachers who've got any small symptom, but it'll also be different for children and for parents coming to school, dropping children off or picking them up, or if there's symptoms in the family. So I think there will be a period that we really do have to educate parents, and the whole school community need to get used to that new culture.
Not a lot of time to do that, though.
No, there
5
isn't.
weeks.
There isn't, but I think one of the things is that this isn't starting now in terms of that kind of culture. We've been talking about symptoms of COVID for months now, and lots of people have been hearing those messages, and families have been hearing those messages over months. So I think what now we've got to do is take that message and put it into the school context. So it's not a completely new message, it's just putting it within the school context.
Are you worried about the social distancing measures in school? Teachers have been told they won't always be able to keep a physical distance. Is that a cause of concern for parents?
I think for younger children, no, but I think obviously as children get up through the primary school system, that could become a problem and a concern for them. So I think it's really important that all the hygiene measures that are put in place are managed, and I think also the pods and the classes staying together is also another huge protective factor, and makes all the tracing, if any child does get sick, much easier. So I think what we've tried to do with, well, what the government's tried to do with the plan is reduce the risk as much as possible, because it's not just saying, well, we can't tolerate any risk around COVID, because children are already being impacted negatively by COVID without having COVID. Their education's being impacted significantly, and their mental health and well-being is being impacted significantly, and parents are telling us that every day, that they want to see their children back in school.
Okay. Deirdre MacDonald, from the teacher's perspective, social distancing among teenagers hasn't been easy. We've all seen it in recent months. We're now asking them to move quickly between classrooms and to stay sitting close to the people they were sitting close to before. Who's going to make sure that actually happens? Is it teachers?
actually, Anya mentioned the necessity for extra supervision, because, as you said, actually the students will be held in the classes as best possible. Now, secondary school is a very complex organisation, with specialist rooms. You break up for different subject areas, so it's a very, very complex organism. But we will need a substantial amount of supervision, so that while the teachers are moving between the class groupings, that the social distancing will be maintained. And it is about attitude adjustment and behavioural change, which actually takes a long time, but we're in learning mode, so we're hoping the students will also be that. I think they want to come back to school, and we certainly want to go back to school, because one really positive out of this is that we see the value of education, and that's an enormous gain. And we see the importance of face-to-face, the classroom experience, so we want that as well, but we want it in a safe environment for us and for students.
Okay, do you know how many of your members' schools will be holding classes in places like PE halls, like parents' rooms that we saw in Richard's report there from St. Dominic's? How many schools is that
At the moment, actually, our union, the ASTI, has commissioned a survey from a specialist.
Did the department not commission a survey?
Well, they may have, but they haven't told us. So we went and did it ourselves. We're self-reliant, and we want to make sure that our members will be protected and the students will
There's €75 million to be spent on works like that in 5 weeks. It's a
mammoth task.
But should we not have known in advance how many schools?
Well, we asked in advance. We've asked since May.
Okay. Let's hear from one of the class of 2021, hopefully. Matthew Ryan, you're going to be hopefully doing your Leaving Cert in St. Francis College in Rochestown in County Cork. What changes are you expecting in your school?
Well, our school in Rochestown is an old monastery, so it will be quite difficult to do the social distancing properly and to have, because our corridors are quite narrow, so it will be quite difficult, as it will in lots of schools around the country, which is why schools on a local level will need that support. They'll need the funding to make those changes on a local level from the national up to the top.
Will your friends, though, when you're all moving between classes, will you be doing it quickly and staying together and sitting together when you get to the next class?
Again, it's about the supervision, because it's back to that some will, some won't, and it's about trying to ensure as many as possible can, and it's about having those supports and those supervisions and that funding in place to have those supervisions.
What do you make of the idea of classes in PE halls, repurposed concert halls, things like that?
I think if it's what will keep students safe, I think that's necessary, because obviously the return to school
is difficult,
necessary
though, right?
At this point. It is difficult, but I think it's fully doable, and I think schools are tenacious and they will adapt where they can. And I think as long as students are being kept safe and their welfare is put at the top, I think whatever is necessary is what's needed.
You have a particular reason to be more invested than most in keeping COVID out of your school. Your brother has some health issues.
Yeah, so like many students around the country, there are students living with people who are immunocompromised at home, and it is always an anxious fear in the back of the head that they will bring it home and that they'll make someone in their family sick, which is obviously a massive worry for a lot of students, and which is why this roadmap is so important to be followed, that the hand washing facilities are available, that the hand sanitizer is available, and the social distancing is kept in check.
Okay. Deirdre MacDonald, it's not just the students, though, who have concerns about their health or
absolutely
the health
not.
of their families. Do we know how many staff are high risk, and what's going to happen to them?
No, because, for example, the government at the moment, the department, are looking at the categorising of at very high risk and having to put in place something else. But we're also concerned, very concerned, with a substantial number of people who have vulnerable health conditions or who are living at home with somebody who is at very high risk. And, there's the Safety, Health and Welfare at Work Act, 2005, talks about reasonable accommodation. So, health is wealth. We've always heard this, and teachers' health is education's wealth. So we really must do it. Sustainability. It's all about sustainability. Opening the schools is one thing, but we want to keep them open.
But we don't know for certain how many people we're going to have to...
No, because the categories haven't been actually finalised yet by government.
Anya, the unions today not fully convinced that everything can be done in the available time. Will parents accept delays to opening schools?
I think parents are really anxious to get their children back. They were anxious to get them back before the school year ended. So I think what we need to do is bring the whole school community in to support the opening of schools. I think there's a lot parents can do to support the opening of schools. I think parents also have a lot of information that schools need. They've been the primary educator really for the last 5 months, and they've also been the person who's closest knowledge with the mental health and well-being of the children. So I think that information for the school going back will really help schools prepare as well, so that they're fully ready for the children going back in. Okay. But I think parents are key stakeholders in the local school community and will be very willing to help.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Deirdre MacDonald, Anya Lynch and Matthew Ryan, best of luck with the term ahead. David?
Now, as you heard there from Matthew, the biggest impact of all these developments will, of course, be on the students, particularly those facing into exams next year. The Taoiseach confirmed again today that there will be a physical Leaving Cert exam next summer. So how do those heading into 5th and 6th year feel about that and about the possibility of maintaining social distance in school? Philip Gallagher has been finding out.
We're just a bit apprehensive really about how the whole school year is going to go. We just have a lot of questions like, will we have to wear face masks? How will we maintain social distancing? And will we be doing any of the coursework online like we had during quarantine?
How do you feel about social distancing in terms of the size of the school and how well they'll be able to maintain that?
To be honest, I don't see it being possible. The whole point of school is, for me, school is a social thing. I love going to school and meeting people, and you know yourself, you'd be in groups and you'd be like, everyone's on top of each other.
I really don't see how you can within a school. Even within a canteen, locker rooms, classrooms themselves, they're just not equipped. A lot of schools don't have the resources to be able to social distance. Like some classes have 30 students in them, some classes have 10. Thanks to the package deal by the government, hopefully that maybe could happen. But at the same time, can you really expect students who haven't seen their friends in 8 or 9 months to not go up and hug each other the first day of school?
Again, I just don't really see social distancing being possible with the school buses and the school halls and lunch breaks and PE and everything.
Maybe if there's a lot of people in the canteen, lunch area, it might be an issue. But definitely the corridors, if there's small corridors, and getting lockers and stuff, because everyone's in a bunch of people. So that might be an issue.
Well, my family would have high risk people within it in the household, and I think that's a really big concern, is that will the classrooms be safe? So I think there's areas where you can social distance, and I think there's areas where you can't. Corridors are a really common problem, and again, it's about making sure that there's a very concrete plan in place that takes into account the differences.
Just personally, if there was a case in the school, everyone would know within the day who the person was. Everyone would be afraid to go around their friends.
I feel like a lot of students won't go in if they hear that there's a few cases happening. And that's why I think they are talking about doing a lot of online work where they can broadcast the class live so people can choose